Welcome back to Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Man, I'm really excited about today's show. Frank Barbiere is back to talk about Violent Love. Violent Love is his collaboration with Victor Santos. I don't know how Frank does it, but always manages to get top artists to do collaborations with him, whether it's been his Marvel stuff, his DC stuff, or now on Violent Love. I'm such a Victor Santos fan, going back to Azzarello and his collaboration of Filthy Rich. That's the first thing of his I saw. I love Polar, an incredible spy series that he's been doing for Dark Horse. 3 volumes of that. It is must crime reading, as is Violent Love. You know, I knew Frank knew what he was doing because I love his Five Ghosts series, and we talk about that and its eventual return coming soon. But also, Violent Love is fantastic. 6 issues in, and wonderful collaboration between the guys. So I can't recommend it more, which is why we're talking to Frank today about it on Word Balloon. All brought to you by the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you very much, League, for your support. Very pleased. A lot more new subscribers joined up last week, and I thank you very much to all of you, and also the people that are continuing to help support Word Balloon through subscribing at patreon.com. If you like Word Balloon and you think it's worth the price of a comic, is that too much to ask, or even less? $1 a month, whatever you can spare. If you go to patreon.com/wordballoon, that's where my Patreon page is, and you're helping keep the show going and helping me make these new contacts and keep the equipment up and giving you the best conversations in pop culture I can give you. So really, thank you very much, League of Word Balloon listeners. 12 years of Word Balloon. It's always been free. It will continue to be free. And it's because of support like the League of Word Balloon listeners. Thank you very much. Word Balloon is also brought to you today by In Stock Trades at InStockTrades.com. A lot of Frank Barbiere material is available at In Stock Trades, and I am happy to talk about a lot of this stuff. In fact, this is not the first collaboration between Frank and Victor Santos, and I didn't realize it, but we talk about Black Market, the Boom book that they did, and it's available for a reasonable price. You can get the regular price trade paperback at $13.99, but also In Stock Trades has books that have dings in them and stuff, so if you really want to read it and aren't worried about getting a damaged version of Black Market, you can get it for an additional $2 off. The regular version is $13.99, and the In Stock Trades damaged version is $11.99, and that's significant savings off of the retail price of $19.99. There's also Blackout, a book that he did with Colin Lorimer, and that was from Dark Horse. This book is it's part of good genre action from Frank. It's 45% off, just $17.14. We talk about, of course, Five Ghosts. Volume 1, The Haunting of Fabian Gray, is 42% off. It's just $5.79. Lost Coastlines Volume 2 is $8.69, as is Volume 3, Monsters and Men. And that collects, all 3 of those collect the 17 issues that currently exist of Five Ghosts. So just a few of the great Frank Barbiere products you can find at InStockTrades.com. I think I'll do the same for Victor on the other side of the interview. If your orders are $50 or more, your shipping is free. You still got to spend the $50 or more, obviously. But great books at great prices at InStockTrades.com. All right, without further ado, let's get into our conversation now with Frank Barbiere. It's always a pleasure to have him back here on Word Balloon. I'm going to start off and stumble because I was about to say I'm very happy to have Frank Barbiere back. Am I saying it right, Frank?
Yeah, that is perfect.
All right, excellent. I truly, and it's been so long since you've been back, but I've seen you at a few conventions. I'm always happy to say hello, and you were nice off the air. You're like, well, you listen, so it's like you feel like we have been talking, and I'm glad. So it's great to have you back, man. Welcome back to Word Balloon.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
And congratulations on another great collaboration. And I don't have it in front of me. First of all, your Five Ghost guy that I always got to give it up to because I love his art so much.
Oh, Chris Mooneyham,
yes.
Dear friend of mine, and has been just like nonstop amazing. That that was actually, again, it was, 4 years ago when we started doing that book. And that's when I think, probably not exactly 4 years, because our 4-year anniversary was at the end of March. But I know that's when we initially spoke, even when I think I sent you one of the self-published ones.
Yes.
Before even Image had it. Yeah, because I remember you had the oversized. But yeah, no, it's been a crazy ride since then. And we get more into this later, but we are working on more Five Ghosts now too. We are going to hop back in.
Very good.
We put like a teaser up, but we haven't officially announced anything. Cause, again, we have to coordinate a lot with Image still, but we are working on it. I started writing number 18 the other day, and Chris is about to dive in. So we're very excited to jump back in and keep our legacy numbering too. That's always been huge to us. And yeah, well, we left 17 on a cliffhanger like assholes. So it doesn't seem right to me to jump around that, but we just got caught up in we worked on the book for 5 years straight, despite only like 2 years of active publication. And we just hit that point where we were like, if we don't take a break now, we're going to lose our mind. So
well, I understand that, sure. Well, and also because of Five Ghosts, other opportunities have come up, and dipped your toe a couple times that I know in the Marvel side at the very least. And because I think we talked about, didn't you do like a Howling Commandos book at one point? Wasn't that one of the books?
Yeah. I did a full run on Howling Commandos of S.H.I.E.L.D. I had done a run on Avengers World. I did a New Avengers Annual, which is one of my favorite pieces that I'd done. It was a Doctor Strange story with Marco Rudy.
Cool.
In DC, I've been in and out a little bit. I actually have a new thing there that I'm really excited about. I did the Martian Manhunter, Marvin the Martian one shot coming out.
Very cool.
Yeah,
when is it out yet, or is it
June? June. Okay. I think I did it with my dear friend Steve Orlando.
That's great.
We co-wrote that, and it was such a blast. And I think people are going to be really excited to see it. I mean, I already laughed, and I was joking with Steve. I'm like, dude, I forgot how popular Looney Tunes is. He's like, yeah, no shit. But I'm like, well,
but also
as soon as I said Marvin the Martian, a lot of people were like, oh my God. It's I forget that. Yeah, Looney Tunes has a bit of history behind it.
Truly one of the great one-note, Warner Brother characters, but still, and that voice. And, you love them. I mean, yeah, no. So, and also, Manhunter has been funny. I mean, and there have been great funny moments with the Martian Manhunter. So, this is going to be very interesting. So, I think that's cool. I liked what Heath and I'm forgetting the Italian gentleman's name that he worked with, or the Spanish gentleman if it's not Italian. But the Bizarro thing that they did during the New 52, I thought was hilarious. And I mean, I'm glad that DC is leaning into more comedy. The Flintstones thing is great. And I'm one of those guys that I'm like, don't fuck with the design, man. There's nothing wrong with it. But I have to admit it's a very fun, fresh, like Flintstone, kind of like Archie, man. It's like, actually, this is good. So
yeah, Aaron Lopresti drew our issue, and he did such a phenomenal job of making it feel very DC, and especially with a character like Marvin, who is so cartoony, has no face, but like Aaron was able to elicit such great acting with just the eyes, and really made him look like he fits in the DCU.
Cool.
Because again, we definitely went more DCU than Looney Tunes on this, which is why I think people will be surprised, but it really was a blast, and Aaron did a phenomenal job, so I'm excited for people to check it out.
Very cool.
Very soon. I can't remember where in June, but I know it's out in June.
Okay, and I know next week as we're recording, which will likely be the week that this is released, I don't know if it's a skip week or not, because I know it's going to be like the 25th or whatever. Like it's going to be one, and maybe next week's the following week's the skip week. I don't even know. I don't have my calendar handy. It's all right. Where's my bank? They always have the date. Anyway. But I want to get to our main point of the conversation, which was, Violent Love. I'm such a Victor Santos fan. I'm a Frank Barbiere fan. Don't get me wrong.
But you and me both, though, man. I can't believe Victor is kind enough to volunteer his time and efforts to collaborate with me, because he is one of my favorites, and it's a surreal and exciting experience to be able to collaborate with people whose work you genuinely love. And Victor is just a phenom to me. I mean, he writes his own books as well. Yes. He has a huge international following. So, like, literally, as I said, I mean, he's my co-creator and partner on the book, but he's working with me because he wants to, especially doing it through Image. It's our own thing, and I just respect the hell out of both his time and his talent. And he also wrapped up his Polar trilogy, which Dark Horse did those 3 beautiful editions. And I'm, like I said, I'm just constantly in awe, and I I can't believe I get to see art from him on the regular.
Oh my God!
So,
I want to explore more of his foreign press stuff, because you're right. I love Polar. The first thing I saw of his was Filthy Rich with Brian Azzarello. What was the first thing for the two of you encountering each other? What did you see first of his, and did you approach him with something that you had? Or tell me how this happened.
it was very fortuitous and honestly a good pairing by my editors at Boom, because we worked on a creator-owned project that I did at Boom called Black Market, and they had just been talking to Victor because they were fans of his about doing something, and he actually just like tried out for the book, and they showed it to me, and I was like, I love Victor's art so much, I don't even care what his samples look like, just hire it.
So you were already aware, obviously, of him.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think I had seen, because I love Mike Oeming.
Oh, I love Mike, absolutely.
I shamelessly will say, like, Powers is the comic that made me kind of want to be a comic book writer. I mean, maybe that dates me as being still newer in terms of a lot of stuff, but really, like, I read comics my whole life. But when I was around, like, 17, 18, and Powers had started, and then Bendis jumped onto yeah.
No, I love it, dude, because Powers is one of the things that brought me back. It's just, at the time I was 30. But go on.
but you know what I mean? Like, that was Image starting to become, I think, what they are today. And as much as I had read Marvel and DC my whole life, and I love that stuff, and I think right now it's maybe the smartest and highest quality stuff they've done, we were definitely feeling that sag a little at the end of the 90s. And, like, yeah, like, Grant was on X-Men, and then, like, Straczynski and JR on Spider-Man. It was exciting, but it was Powers for me that really, like, I was like, Jesus, I didn't know comics could be like this. Again, because I was mainly a mainstream reader. I didn't, again, dabble in, like, really, like, indie comics or anything like that. Like, and I mean, like, true, like, photocopied indie comics. I was Marvel DC kid, and it was really Powers that broke through to me and kind of made me aware of kind of what creator-owned books were, and just the fact, like, oh, you can take all the stuff that's good about superhero comics and do it in another space and kind of piggyback off that. And again, especially with a book like Powers. And through following Oeming, I read Mice Templar, which he worked on with Brian Glass. And Victor had done some work on that, and I feel like that is the first time I saw his work, even if I hadn't been acutely aware of who he was exactly. But then it was Filthy Rich that, again, I love Azzarello. 100 Bullets is one of my favorite books. Yeah. And I kind of did the mental math of, like, oh, it's that guy, because, again, Victor has a very evocative style that, again, the lowest common denominator way for me to put it is, again, it's kind of like an adult Bruce Timm style. And that was what caught me so off guard with it. And it's interesting because I actually I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over. But that introduced me to his work, and I'd actually just checked out the first volume of Polar when my editors at Boom brought up Victor. So I was, like, very on the pulse of Victor's work at that point, and I was just like, oh my gosh, yes. And it's great because I really enjoyed the book we did, Black Market, at Boom, and it was very much my sort of, like, love letter to Powers in a way, and it kind of gave it this strange kind of perfect storm of, again, Victor having a lot of the same DNA, I think, in his art that Mike has. And I don't know, it was fun for me to do something that I feel like was maybe adjacent to it, because the Black Market is essentially about a world where there are superheroes, but the superheroes are very mysterious and kind of dicks. Like, they don't interact with normal people, and our protagonist finds out that there's actually a cure for all disease in their blood. And because the superheroes don't actually interact with people, they kind of fight amongst themselves and will, quote, save people. But our character kind of starts a black market operation to steal their blood, and it all goes out of control. And it was very similar in the sense that it is a crime story, but it is a world with superheroes. And obviously, I will not even shy away from Powers being one of my huge influences on that. And it was kind of fun to play in that same sandbox. But we know Victor and I really hit it off from there, and immediately when that wrapped, we started kind of shooting notes back and forth for what would become Violent Love. And we just really put a lot of time and development into it. And we're fortunate enough to finally get it in front of Eric at Image, and then just kind of hit the ground running. But it's such a special book to us because it is in the same way I will say about Five Ghosts, it's the exact book we would be reading and the exact book we want to do. And again, I feel like we've put our best feet forward on it, and we're both super proud of it to the point that, I want people to like it, but it is just like our dream project in so many ways. And we're so fortunate that we're given the creative control we have at Image and that we work so closely together. Because it's just Victor and I. Our designer, Dylan Todd, did beautiful trade dress for it. But in terms of all the art, Victor handles all of it. He's penciling, inking, and coloring it. So it's a very, very clean collaboration. I mean, that's it. And again, I love collaborating. It's why I work in comics. I don't like write novels, and I love having like different colors involved sometimes. But I feel like here it's just it is exactly the book we want to be making. So like everything at Image, it lives and dies by what we put into it. And it is a very refreshing experience to do something that is kind of so pure and organic in a lot of ways. And I was actually very fortunate enough that Victor actually came out for the book release. It was his first time in the US, and we got to actually like hang out and spend a week together. And we had been friends before, but I'm glad to have him in my in real life corner of friends as well. And we got to spend time kind of going around and him seeing a lot of U.S. sites. I mean, we saw both D.C. and New York, so it was exciting to kind of show someone who's never been here, two cities that are pretty awesome. I mean, New York is one of my favorite places. I lived there for a long time, and I grew up in Jersey, so it made me happy to show someone and be like kind of their first, their Sherpa into a great American city.
That's excellent, man. No, that's terrific. Now,
and quick tremendous shout out to our buddy Steve Anderson, who runs Third Eye Comics in Annapolis, which is unabashedly my favorite comic book store. Who actually flew us both out for that and kind of set up the trip. So Steve is a phenomenal supporter of my work, and I feel like just comics in general. And there's so many great stores, and I'm close with so many fantastic retailers, but just part of me just hopes more and more stores kind of keep up what they're doing. Because I feel like with the number of amazing stores I see, like I feel like there's just no way that this hobby can't continue to grow. Because again, I think a lot of retailers now have built stores where they foster community. They really care about getting books to new people, converting new customers. And it's really inspiring to get out there and kind of travel to stores and see the hard work the retail community is doing.
The survival of the book culture and the comic book culture, it leans on the same things that are keeping, novels going as well. And it is, like you said, building community within your store and making it more of a salon experience rather than just a storefront experience, and that you really do invite people in and have them hang out and come for events and stuff like that. So no, I agree with you, and I'm glad that
and
it's
so
not
much
just
of that is
at the major markets, that it's happening in places like Annapolis too.
Absolutely. And it's thankless work too. These people do it because they love it. And like, they're entrepreneurs and business owners, but no one's patting them on the back. Like and I think that's one of the things that I really just give every comic retailer credit for. I mean, first of all, just opening a comic book store in their own right, that is a passion project to begin with. And then just to see so many people willing to put money where their mouth is. Again, I could rattle off so many fantastic stores who, again, the reason I'm able to do creator-owned work is because these stores support my work, and that obviously means the world to me.
Well, that's the thing, and you're right, and I think it shows that if you have a quality product, Sam Humphries is another great example of that you guys, you have to hand sell, especially when you're breaking in. Now, in relation to Five Ghosts, this first book at Boom, Black Market, was that pre-Five Ghosts or post?
This was post. So okay. Five Ghosts really kind of, again, we were so fortunate to get in at Image when like they were really, really blowing up, and it thankfully got all of us, me, Chris Mooneyham, Lauren Affey, and to a lesser extent our buddy Gary Brown, but he was already in there and he only did one issue of Five Ghosts, so okay. I don't think I could take the credit for making Gary's career by collaborating with him, but no, it was just, comics is so interesting because it's so hard to get in, but I feel like because it is a small community, if you can do one thing that people really connect with, like everyone will kind of come in. And I thankfully am someone who loves doing my own stuff and loves coming up with new kind of IP, for lack of a better term, but projects I care about and things that are original content. So I've been very fortunate to kind of spread out all over and really get in at such a great time when a lot of new companies were really taking a chance on newer creators. So I will always be very glad of right place, right time.
I hear you, man. But again, yeah, it always helps having an A-list guy drawing your ideas, and this is clearly one of those examples. And I always like when Victor collaborates. I love his original stuff, like you said, like Polar. Polar's amazing. But I'm assuming, certainly in the case of Filthy Rich with Azzarello, it was one of those Vertigo crime, it's a graphic novel, but it's kind of 2 panels per page. It was limited space, and it's shaped like a paperback novel. And it's a hardcover.
Yeah, I love those formats.
Me too,
tiny,
man.
They were the small hardcovers.
Oh, yeah, and really, I agree with you. I think a lot of really neat stories came out of that series. And I know that it might have been a tougher sell for the stores and stuff like that. But I feel that, and even in the case here of Filthy Rich, I think Victor's stretching, I think, as he does visually and stuff, but it seems a little more conventional than his Polar stuff. His Polar stuff always seems a little more expressionistic. And there are moments in Violent Love that do, let him stretch and go beyond a panel and stuff and really have fun with a page. But do you agree with what I'm saying or what I'm seeing?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's the mark of him being such a kind of smart craftsman with his work that he understands kind of time and place. Like, he knows Polar, okay, this is my kind of experimental fun project. I'm going to go nuts. I have a lot of influences that I want to explore. But every issue of Violent Love, like, he will either rein it in or take some time to kind of explore with like color choice or different styles. And I think, I don't know, to me, that is really the mark of a pro. Like, they know how to fit their work to the content and are never, like, he'll never do something just to show off. Like again, not to disparage anyone, but when we're all starting out, we all want to show like how good we are, how cool the stuff we can come up with. But Victor is certainly a very deliberate craftsman and understands what's appropriate when, and quite honestly, that's why I've been so fortunate with everyone I collaborate with that they just like have a way of elevating the work. And as I said, it's why I love comics. I mean, I love the collaboration. I love that I write a script and someone takes that and makes it better. They bring what they can to it and turn it into kind of a visible product that always transcends what I either had visualized or thought about, even when I know their work. And that is the addictive part of it for me and why I will always do comics, as there's just nothing better than seeing pages come back from something you wrote. And, again, being able to be kind of the first audience. And Victor is just really one of those artists who, I write full script, and a lot of people always ask process stuff, but, he will always make it monumentally better. I mean, every artist I collaborate with they'll always add panels and kind of have a better eye for shots. And I love that. Like, my comic scripts, again, they're not super dense. I mean, as I said, they're full scripts, so I'll write panel descriptions, but it's always with the caveat that I think a lot of writers who get kind of great looking product, they give their collaborators room to be themselves. And that is the number one thing I love about comics, that you get to kind of have someone interpret what you wrote and let them kind of do the best work they can. And it really, I don't know, it's an addictive and fun process for me as a writer to get that stuff back and just get that in your inbox all the time. I mean, I joke with Violent Love too that I don't purposely try to think of like iconic shots when I'm writing out the scripts, but I feel like every issue Victor manages to find a scene to kind of become like my favorite shot from Violent Love that I feel like just captures the tone of the book. There's a panel, a spread from issue 6 that's literally just Daisy and Rock sitting in a diner, and each of them is on one side of the page in the booth, and he just brought so much personality and I don't know, just artistry to it. I'm just like, I cannot wait to get the finished art of this so I can just like make a poster for myself.
I understand.
I mean, it's fun to collaborate with people you like, which I guess that's the long-winded way of saying that.
No, I hear you though, man. It's stuff like that, and also, God, Daisy's rap sheet, or whatever that is, a wanted poster or whatever that, kind of just moments like that, and also her skinny dipping or her in the shower or what. I mean, I won't deny. I mean, he does. He draws sexy women and everything. I felt that way with,
I feel
with
like
Filthy Rich, you know. I mean, he does, and that's, you want a femme fatale. You want a sexy femme fatale.
No, absolutely, and I feel like he doesn't shy away from that as well. Like,
yes.
And it's obviously our book is for mature readers, but and again, I don't want to.
Still tasteful though. I mean, it's not.
Exactly,
It isn't exploitive. It really is tasteful noir art.
And that's what I don't want to pigeonhole a whole group of artists, but I feel like because his background is European, that he's grown up again with much more, I feel like, tasteful nudity than we have in the States.
Yeah,
I mean, there's still so much taboo around.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's so nice to be able to write scenes like that again require a deft hand and to know that he can execute them better than I even thought possible. And again, have it fit in the genre, be alluring, but also be tasteful. And I feel like even with the violence in the book, things can get a little crazy and get almost grindhouse, but it's why I've said a lot about the book is, like, obviously we're not going to shy away from that, but I feel like Victor can render it in a way that makes it visceral, that makes it almost like horrific and not gratuitous. And that's really what I was going for, in the sense of like, oh, well, the book is grounded. Yeah, we have a little bit of crazy stuff toward the end with some of the violence, but really the idea that, and I say this all the time, but it's what always shook me is I remember seeing the first like violent fight in my real life, and maybe I'm a sheltered baby, but it was when I was a teenager in high school. I saw kids fighting. A kid broke a light on another kid at school, and there was just like a kid actually, like, his face got cut and he started bleeding, and it was the most horrific thing I've ever seen. Like, and this is growing up playing crazy violent video games and seeing violent movies, but that real world violence was disturbing. Like, it was really upsetting and kind of hyper real in a weird way. And I feel like with this book, we were very clear when talking about it, and of course it'll be stylized, but that's the effect we're going for of having a kind of grounded story. So when shit hits the fan, we want it to have an element of danger and kind of horror in a way. And I think Victor has really figured out a way to do that. And I mean, yes, it also looks cool. Like, that is a big part of the design. I won't shy away from that as well. But I think he's just really captured the visceral nature of it. And in our narrative, where we have someone who goes from a quote normal life to becoming a criminal and really wanting to show all that entails and what those decisions mean, I think he's just been the perfect collaborator for that, to kind of bring those moments to life in the way that I intended them to be. And there's no better feeling than having something come out and kind of carrying the tone and weight that you thought. And I feel like that is the joy and fear of being a comic writer, and I assume probably even in film as well, of hoping that it carries the stuff you wanted to be there is there when it is a finished product. And I think that being able to just collaborate directly with Victor alone really helps that, because there's just a very clear line of communication of like, okay, we want to do the panel like this. Victor goes and does the panel like this. And it doesn't have to be kind of thought over, discussed. And again, I love collaborating with editors, and I think there's a lot of fantastic editors out there, but it is making garage comics, like, at this point. It's us kind of doing whatever we want, and it's how Five Ghosts was as well. And there is a real exciting freedom to that, of knowing like, okay, like, well, if we're going to mess up, it's on us, but we're going to take a risk and we're going to go for it. And particularly with Violent Love, we did both issue 1 and issue 5 as double-sized issues.
Yes.
Which is why our trade is enormously long,
really
ensuring
big.
we will never.
Yes.
and we were very adamant about keeping it $9.99 too. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah, we obviously make less money off that, but we don't care. We want people adopting the book. I like that it's a lot of book for not a prohibitive price.
Yes.
And we are going to be right back with issue 6 in July. So we're doing just
issue
a
7, I'm assuming,
month off.
right? Or is it 6?
Or 5 was actually the end of the trade. As I said, it's so long you'd think it's 7 issues, but
and also reading the PDF you gave me, I thought there were 6 acts.
I
don't know.
it might have been.
Well, I'm sure I'm not remembering it correctly, but that's
no,
because honestly,
I
was like, damn, this is long. And again, maybe it was just the page count and I'll tell you the truth, Frank, and I'm not kidding. I had been buying the floppies, but I'm like, yeah, I'll get to it, and I didn't even realize that the arc had ended. And then Brian from Image emails and is like, hey, do you want to talk to Violent Love? And I'm like, yes. I'm like, absolutely. Because, again, Victor's art is so eye-catching and everything. So, but that's great. Like you said, there are more pages. It is a hell of a deal. And also, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do think it's one of those great first Image volumes of you've got a complete story, but obviously things will continue. And it absolutely will answer the question for you after you purchase it. Do I want to keep reading this? Or, okay, I had a fun ride or whatever. And I really think it gives both readers a satisfying read, but I do think that you will be intrigued, and I do think Victor's art and Frank's story will suck you in, and you'll want to continue.
So, well, that's all we can hope for. So I'm glad you feel that way.
Totally
but I'm totally excited with our designer Dylan Todd. Did such a great job with the book design. I love how he did the inside front cover and inside back cover, the two mug shots, and just that's one of the, not to sit here and just sing Image's praises as they do okay for themselves. They figured something out, but we get full leeway to do all our own book design, which is always so freeing because we can do fun stuff like that. We don't need to run it by anyone or worry about even ads or anything. And it is just a very rewarding process. Like I can look at this trade and know that we made no compromises, that this is exactly the product we want to put out, and just hope it resonates with people. And I feel like in terms of Violent Love, we were very fortunate to break a story that has a very natural midpoint, which we reach at the end of the trade. And I'm hoping that it does entice people to maybe jump on with the monthlies, but I also can't disparage people for trade waiting. I know it's a satisfying way to read the books as well, but we really want to hopefully keep the book going beyond 10, because 10 will be the end of this kind of first story arc, with volume 1 being issues 1 through 5 and volume 2 being 6 through 10. But we really love this world we've built. We really love these characters, and there's a lot of chronology in the book, as we know, because we jump from time periods, and we have a lot of stories we want to tell. So we're really hoping to keep like a universe book kind of going, like, and pardon me standing on the shoulders of giants here, but things like Criminals, Stray Bullets, and even like Sin City, like, just we want to keep the book going in a world like that where we can do a new volume that is different characters and kind of anthology based like that. Sure. And again, it's a passion project for us, so we will do it as long as we humanly can because we enjoy making it. And we just really hope that anything we can do to bring new readers on or kind of keep the people reading it happy and coming month to month, we will always push for. And that goes down to just like making sure our like floppies have a cool look to them. I mean, we spend the time designing each one of those issues. I feel like Dylan does a tremendous job of making them look cool and making them kind of artifacts in of themselves. And really he had done that on Five Ghosts as well, where I think there is a joy to being able to be like, oh, well, the issues like have a cool design. So if I have all my issues together, they look cool. If I have my trades, they look cool. And I don't know. I just always try to treat every project I'm doing like it might be my last chance to make a comic book.
Good.
So
hey, man.
I'm like, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna go all out, and I'm gonna make something that I would be happy picking up. Or, I mean, that's the only way to do it, right? I mean, in all art, like if you make something you would buy, hopefully that finds a market. But no, it's been an awesome experience so far, and obviously, I'm just excited to be back already. I can't believe time is flying. I can't believe that already that first trade is done. And issue 6 is almost ready to go. I'm getting ready to just like letter it and put it out. Cause I actually lettered the book myself.
Cool.
I don't ever credit myself for some reason, but, on all my creator owned stuff for the most part, I did my own lettering, and, it's a cool way to kind of get back into it as the writer as well, to kind of get your hands on the art a little bit.
Sure.
So I always like that experience. It makes me feel a little more involved than when it just comes back with everything done and you just sign off on it.
That's cool, man. We might have talked about you doing lettering before. Did you break in as a letterer, Frank?
No, I was not on the Ed Brisson plan.
Okay.
I am very good friends with Ed, who did break
Of course, yes,
letter
indeed.
first.
And I know Ed Brisson did. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I commiserate with him about it every now and then, because there was a point when I quit my day job and started doing comics full time, I did pick up some lettering work on the side, but I found out I really did not enjoy doing it when it wasn't my own work.
Sure.
I mean,
sure.
Champagne problems, but I actually lettered a book that Ed did half of, so I joke about it. I'm like, look at this all-star lineup. It's I cannot remember who wrote the book for the life of me. I apologize, but it's like the writer, the artist, Ed Brisson, Frank Barbiere.
That's fantastic.
I'm like, oh, it's a pretty big power book there with so many people involved.
Nice. Now I was going to ask because, all right, so as you said, this first volume is going to really go over the first 10 issues, and I would imagine Victor's probably got his own stuff he wants to do. Other people may want to collaborate him. How, beyond this first volume and stuff, how often, and I guess you're going to see what kind of response you get from 6 through 10 and the first trade, obviously.
Absolutely, yeah. But Victor is, again, not, well, yes, to sing his praise more, he is just a workhorse and works on 2 projects at once all the time, so always has 2 things going. He just announced his other project. He's doing a original graphic novel with Alex DeCampi for Gallery 13 right now as well, which looks awesome. Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of Alex's work as well. And again, being a fan of Victor, it's like, oh, well, that's amazing to not only be able to see our book, but be able to enjoy his art in other places.
No question.
And he's just cut from just, I don't know. I was going to say, I'm mixing my metaphors, but he is just literally a workhorse who is going 24/7 all the time, and
pumping out
more power to him because he actually just I don't know if it's going to be brought to our region at all, but he wrote a book that another artist just drew, and I can't remember what the name of it is. It was in France, and it's
I follow him I follow Victor on Twitter, so I get his tweets, and I remember him promoting it recently, I think.
Yeah, it's like a crazy sci-fi book, like an action sci-fi book that he did, and again, he's just such a man of many talents. I know that his samurai epic Rashomon Dark Horse is actually bringing over, and I have the French editions,
cool.
and I would highly recommend everyone jump on those when they came over when Dark Horse puts them out, because they're beautiful, beautiful books.
Does he speak English well?
He does, but he doesn't think he does, and I know he's always shy about doing podcasts.
Because I was kind of like with Brian, and it's like, all right, I know Frank. I really want to talk to both of them. And it's like, okay, so you'll be talking to Frank, and I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to Victor too. And I understand. I know other artists that are like that, European artists that are self-conscious, and it's like, dude, you speak better English than I do. Don't.
I know. Well, that's why I tell him all the time. And when we're hanging out, I'm like, don't ever apologize. I can't speak any Spanish, and you are speaking 2 languages.
Yes.
So you are. It's not problematic that you misuse a word here or there.
Exactly.
And, I don't know. He's super shy about podcasts.
We're gonna I'll get Alex on this too. So yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, it was so fascinating to be able to spend time with him and talk about his work as well. Because as I said, he gets a lot of obvious references to the work of Darwyn Cooke, and again, Darwyn. I was
going to bring that up, and especially with Darwyn's the anniversary of his passing last year. It's like, thank God,
oh my gosh,
we still have Victor for another.
Yeah.
And that's another great comparison, like with Bruce Timm. But I was thinking Darwyn as well. Go on.
And that's what I find fascinating, though, because someone actually brought it up to him, and he's like, I love Darwyn Cooke's stuff, but it's really Bruce Timm. Like, Bruce Timm is the one who Victor consciously saw was like, I love this work. And I think Darwyn, in the same way, was kind of a little bit of an understudy of Bruce Timm. And it's just so fascinating to find that shared DNA. And
Oeming's another guy, obviously, like that, too.
Exactly, yeah. And again, I feel like we suffered such a monumental loss with Darwyn, and it's such a bummer. I can't believe it's been a year already, actually, when you said that. And as I said, I feel like, if anything, hopefully, again, the work we're doing can be adjacent to it, like I said, and maybe lead someone to discover some of that work as well. I mean, I think it might be the other way around. I think we are a little bit more the underdogs there. But
hopefully,
it is definitely
newbie. It might lead them to Darwyn stuff, and it's forgive me again, but I just want to say it's great that these art styles have opened up noir to a more cartoony style and going into a different direction. And I love the guys like Paul Galassi and Steranko that are, and Sorrentino for a more modern name in terms of this ultra realistic Tim Bradstreet. I love it. I mean, that stuff has me at hello as well. But it's just nice that,
absolutely,
this is really a fun, bouncy way that has really kind of opened up a new way to noir that, frankly, other than being influenced as a guy like Paul Dini's another guy like that as well, that, we're influenced by, Dr. Seuss cartoons of the 60s and some of that late Warner Brothers animation of the 50s and 60s, Chuck Jones and people like that, once Chuck really got into his form in the 50s and 60s. Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see that seep into crime.
Absolutely. And as I said, really, it was Powers that brought me into more of the creator-owned space of comics. And then obviously I discovered Criminal as it came out. And I love crime. And it seems a little counterintuitive, but it was actually Darwyn Cooke's Parker graphic novels that inspired us to do Five Ghosts because
interesting.
The first one had come out, and I had been collaborating with Chris for about a year. He had just finished art school, and he went to the Joe Kubert School. And I actually, where I was living in Jersey, was only a town over. So we actually were able to hang out and be kind of like friends, and I'd actually see his work. And we had both just read that, and he started kind of sketching in more of a style, again, kind of that square-jawed style. Mm-hmm. And I saw those sketches in his sketchbook. I was like, well, crap, man, if you do a book that looks like that. And he was like, oh, I'd love to. And I'm like, well, I don't want to do straight crime. So maybe if we did like a thief character in the 40s. And that was very much the genesis of what we started to with Five Ghosts. So it is just surreal how a lot of different kind of inspirations from this different places. But I feel like I've always been just such a fan of both of Bruce Timm stuff, of Darwyn Cooke stuff, and Victor stuff. And something about that style, I feel like, and Oming as well, I don't know. I feel like it's rooted in the kind of familiar of almost being cartoony, but it just elevates it. And I feel like all of them are so capable of using the comics page as for like what it's worth, kind of, not just trying to do and not to disparage it. I love good cinematic comics, but I feel like they're all just so clever with their paneling and so smart with their use and economy of the page. And that's why I love collaborating with Victor, because I know I can write a sequence that he will just kind of find a brilliant way to execute it. I always tell a story when I'm teaching, because I do a bit of lecturing still. I used to be a high school teacher, but whenever I get a chance, I'll go talk at art schools or colleges, and particularly about writing for an artist. And I always use a Victor page as an example. That there's this page from Black Market where it was like a 5-panel page where, like, in the first panel, like, the characters are talking behind the wheel of a car. The second panel, someone was supposed to look in the rearview mirror and see a police car behind them. They kind of talk amongst themselves a bit more, freaking out, and then they get pulled over. And the last panel is like the cop approaching. And I wrote it probably in a very static way, but Victor did this brilliant layout where there's a panel of them talking and then like a overhead shot of the highway and the car being followed by a cop car, that if you follow your eye down the page, it gets like kind of pulled over in the same shot with a kind of insert panel for the third panel of them freaking out. Yep. And it's just such a brilliant way to, again, use the comics page. I think that is what good collaboration brings. It kind of elevates work from it. I don't know. A lot of people get salty about blah, blah, blah. This person contributes this person contributes that. And I just laugh when I see that argument because it's so counterproductive, because truly, like, the thing that makes comics special to me is that it's a synthesis. It's two people both using their heads, and it doesn't come down to like, oh, well, I put this many hours in, et cetera, because it's about that shared product at the end that is better than the kind of sum of its whole. And for me, that's, I don't know. I just feel like when people split hairs about that, and I understand why they do it, it gets crazy and there's a lot of problems with credit, et cetera, sure. But just knowing the actual production aspect of it, there is just it's one of the most truly collaborative mediums to me. And the thing I always say that I love about comics versus something like film is you can make a comic around a month. Like it's immediate turnaround, and you get that satisfaction of like, oh wow, I wrote this, it got drawn, and now it's here and it's a real thing. And that part of it will always be thrilling. But yeah, I'm trying to think of on the horizon. I also recently, I'm trying to think of what I wrapped up last year. I did a Deja Thoris run, which was a great deal of fun.
Oh, fantastic!
That's collected in paperback now.
Yeah, man. No, that's great. And the Carter franchise, I always appreciate what Dynamite is doing with the John Carter franchise, because they're really, they fucked up that movie, and what are you going to do? I mean, but
yeah, right.
But older readers understand. Like, it's like, no, there's really good ideas in there, man, and then you put it in the right hands. And yeah, Deja Thoris is a great character, absolutely.
And I wrapped up a series earlier this year called The Revisionist with Gary Brown.
Yes,
that was at Aftershock, which was a total joy. And yet again, that was another book that felt very pure, as Aftershock kind of gave us the leeway to do whatever we wanted, and we made the book we want to make, so to speak. And
you're over there, and I know Wade has something over there, and Azzarello has American Crime, and I really like Jackpot from Ray Fawkes, and I haven't started reading his other Aftershock series.
Yeah, they are doing great books.
Yeah,
and as Marks. I said, I feel so fortunate to be in the right place at the right time, as as people are kind of coming in and doing new original stuff. But it always is such a thrill to be able to kind of find yet another place to do something new. And really on the horizon for me, I've got a few kind of work for hire things I can't quite talk about yet. Okay. But really the return of Five Ghosts is huge for us. Again, we're banking probably at least 3 issues before, so I'll be sharing stuff on like social media and just very vocal talking about it. But we are far from ready to announce any like issue release dates or anything like that. But we are kind of putting our pedal to the metal, so to speak, and really excited to kind of do the best version of that book we've ever been able to do. As it's, again, we've all grown in the time that has elapsed since we stopped doing it. But then again, Violent Love, as I said, will be continuing. But I've also got a few other creator-owned things, again, that I can't quite announce, but stuff that's been long gestating on my end that I'm really, really proud of, and stuff that, again, it is all passion stuff for me. I feel very fortunate that I get to put my own stuff out into the market, and just happen to kind of get in at the right time when that's viable, because just so many creators I respect who tell me the stories of like when they started doing creator-owned comics, and like if they sold 2,000, it was like a miracle.
Right.
And I'm just like, oh, geez, yeah. I think about the complaints some people have with numbers and things like that now. I'm like, well, go talk to Rick Remender and ask him about doing creator-owned comics.
Absolutely. For like his first 10 years. Absolutely. Or maybe, I think actually it might have been his first 10 years. Certainly close to it, if not.
Yeah. It's
Nightmare,
amazing
Sea of Red, all these really interesting ideas that, didn't get traction until after, even Fear Agent. I mean, Christ, I was on that journey with him from the beginning with Fear Agent. Luckily,
I feel like
it's like, hey, this is a great book.
Such a fascinating book,
yes.
Right? Like that. It's one of those things that it's funny because I feel like similarly, like Fractions Casanova is the same way. Like where, guys, this came out before and you just weren't paying attention, and it was the same book, but I mean, that's the exciting thing, I think, about a lot of this work. Like, it never goes away. Like, it will always be there, and you never know when someone will discover it.
And that's, Frank, if I may, that's why I'm interested in, again, with you guys coming back to Five Ghosts, because I keep having this conversation. I had it with Nick Spencer about Morning Glories, and Tim Seeley and Mike Norton, finally wrapped up Revival. And, hey, man, this is awesome. They announced at C2E2 Revival has a, development deal going and everything, and it's going to be something. I can't remember if it's going to be a movie or I think it is going to be a movie and not a TV show, but I could be wrong. Regardless, like, some of these big ideas that go beyond 3 arcs, 4 arcs, 4 trades or something like that. Yeah, you wonder when you can stop, because again, you guys were all inspired by that 100 Bullets era, but then all of a sudden, Jason Aaron only had 70 issues to really do Scalped, and you saw, the I don't know if it's patience from a publishing standpoint. I guess it is, but that's the thing. So like in Image, it is your own thing, and obviously you keep doing a book as long as it's feasible. But also, I mean, I can appreciate a fan going like, all right, how many more of these?
Yeah. Well, it's been fascinating with Five Ghosts too to see that people keep discovering it. Like the 3 volumes we have keep selling, and that really gives
only
us
3 right now.
We have 3 volumes out, which it's funny because I talk about working on the book for 5 years, and then someone could read it probably in 3 hours, just tear through it and be like, "That's it."
What else?
Yeah, right. And that's the thing. I always forget that. Again, consumer facing, it seems like that's when people start paying attention. They're like, "Okay, you got me. Now, what are you doing next?" And we think there's just like, again, it's a book we unanimously enjoy and love doing, which is why we're just kind of like, well, let's do more. Like, we love this. There's no reason. And this is what I always said, like, to Chris when we had a moment where like, should we try just do something else to like get better sales? And I was like, the last thing in the world I want to do is like a shittier version of Five Ghosts, just to like up our numbers, because fans are not stupid. Like, we write to the smartest audience we've ever had. They'll be like, this is just like a weird take on the thing you were doing that we liked. Why don't you just do that? And I'm happy to kind of jump right back to the source. And it is the kind of thing where we stumbled on something that we feel very fortunate that we have a lot of stories to tell in this world, because with volume 4 of Five Ghosts, it's going to kind of, not to get too lost in the weeds of it, but we'll actually end what we consider book 1 of Five Ghosts, like the first big arc.
Okay.
And at the end of this arc, it will set up a new status quo to keep moving ahead, and will take us to issues 24 and 25, which will be fun milestone issues just to do, because again, it's hard to keep anything going for 6 issues, let's be real. So we'll be glad to do that. And again, we just hope we can keep doing it as long as we have stories to tell, which will hopefully be a long time. I mean, I look at stuff like what Mignola's done with Hellboy, and obviously, as I said, I don't mean to put it in the same category, but it's that kind of world where like, oh, we have a world that represents everything we love about comics. Like, we don't need excuses to play in it. Cool. Like, we would gladly find more to populate it with. And again, that's the kind of stuff you kind of hit the lottery with, like, in terms of creatively. Like, not every book is built to go on for a long time, and we really just don't want to kind of take that for granted.
No, and you're right. In the nature of Five Ghosts and stuff, there are 5 directions you can go into, so it does make sense and everything. And
that's why I joke with Chris. I'm like, well, we have like the whole of the literary canon of the world to pull from, as well as all pulp. I don't think we're really going to run out of material anytime.
But that's great. And honestly, that is part of the appeal of Five Ghosts. But yeah, I mean, that's, I don't want to name names, but I have had creators on that, and they've gone on to bigger and different things. And it was like, they kept going with this one Image book. And I'm like, all right, guys, if you're not hitting your numbers, I understand, but like, wrap it up and do it like we were talking about. Like, remember, look at all the different books, that way, when you do hit it, you can come back to it if you want to and say, I mean, God, I'm talking to Carl Kessel, and I think it'll be out before your conversation. But he and Tom Grummett did that book with Guerrilla Comics. And it's like, it's ground zero, and I'll know it better when I'm actually talking to him. But it was, it was cut off in mid-run, and the thing that was funding Guerrilla Comics, went out of biz, and they tried to keep it going for a while. Well, now they're Kickstartering it and everything, and that's great. And they're much bigger names than they were 18 years ago when they were doing this book. And it's like, yeah, why not? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you can go back, and Bendis continues to sell Fire, and AKA Goldfish, and Torso, and Jinx, all of his pre-Power stuff and everything, and his pre-Marvel stuff. So, like, there is a life for this stuff later. And I'm not saying in your guys' case in Five Ghosts, but no, it's just that kind of question in general that I think obviously creators have to ask, and especially when a book does well for a while in Image, and then it's like, okay, and again, it's the question, some arcs or some epic storylines, I don't know, do you finish up at 30? And again, I'm not asking you specifically with Five Ghosts. But, it is that question that I think people have to ask themselves.
Yeah, and for real, it is just there's so many variables, and I feel like we try to just take what we have and can work with and give it our all in that sense. Like, we know, like, okay, we don't have perfect scenario for C, but we've got A and B, so you know what? There's no excuse to not do the book, and just kind of dive in. So we will hopefully, as I said, in a perfect world, we will do it as long as humanly possible. So we'll see. And again, I just feel fortunate to find people I love collaborating with and stuff I feel like we can constantly innovate on. But such is comics.
I understand. So when have you announced when 18 is coming out, or is it still in the works right now?
No, just that we're working on it. And again, we're hoping for 2017, but as I said, I can't give any official dates because I don't want to step on Image's toes or anything like that. But we are going to be plugging through for the summer.
Cool.
And as I said, we're not being cagey about it. We're telling people we're working on it. We'll be sharing stuff on social media, and I'm going to be very cautious because we're doing some exciting stuff wherein, like, again, because we pull from literary canon, we have some cool characters from the worlds of literature we're bringing in that I don't want to quite reveal, but Chris is yet another artist who does just everything he draws looks cool. So, like, all his notes look cool and all his designs look cool. So anytime I can share that stuff, I always try to, because I know it's back to the whole, like, I like seeing it, so I'm sure people who like the book like seeing it as well.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, man. I always compare him to Jim Aparo. So that's what it feels like when I see it. And I mean, that's that great Brave and the Bold kind of look and everything that Jim brought to all of his Bronze Age DC stuff well into the 90s and early 2000s for that matter. So no, it's and I don't know if that's one of his guys or not.
Yeah, Chris is an interesting kind of artist, as I feel like, and I feel like we talked about this last time, that his influences tend to be so much more classic and still, like, I was curious to see if after the success of Five Years Little, and I don't mean this in an egotistical way, but, like, I feel like part of what makes the book so appealing visually is that people aren't working in these styles anymore. And I was amazed the number of people who were, like, telling me what it reminded them of and just how that was their entry point into the book, and then they ended up liking the book on top of that. But I would think that more people would be kind of mining back into those classic kind of art styles, and again, it's
just
not
looking at the old stuff
wheel,
and not trying to. Well, and again, I don't think we were necessarily. It was a nice surprise to find, him doing it in that kind of style. And I think sometimes. And again, everything we said about, like, people like Victor and Oming and Bruce Timm and stuff and Darwyn and what they bring to crime, it seems like sometimes other interpretations of crime, it's hit and miss. And I do think that obviously the classics, they knew what they were doing, and that's why they're classic. And I mean, and it's interesting. I also think that guys like Victor, I wonder if a Robert McGinnis figures into his inspiration, because it comes out of his hands very differently and much more cartoony. But I think just in terms of perspective and the choices of poses of characters and things, I see a lot of that classic painted noir that you find in, like, hard case crime paperbacks these days. Yeah, and usually, they're taking great classic art, and thank God we've still got guys like McGinnis still out there churning out stuff.
It is such I find comic art, which I obviously love, just so fascinating, because I feel like so much of it is taken for granted. And any fan of this medium knows that, again, especially I feel like some of the older stuff it was never regarded as high art, but, like, so much of it has such amazing craftsmanship, and it's just is high art. And I'm amazed to see a lot of the people who are still working. And that's what I find so fascinating about Chris, too, and so fortunate I was able to meet him before he passed as well, but because he worked with Joe Kubert. Joe was his teacher and at the Kubert School, and Adam and Annie, but he was one of the last classes to actually be taught by Joe, and I feel like he really did get a lot of that DNA from Joe.
Yes, totally.
Into his work, and I feel like he embraced it instead of being like, okay, how am I going to now, like, go crazy on this? Yeah. But Victor, fascinating. I was actually just looking at the dedication page of Violent Love. He said, to Gene Colan, Doug Menke, Sam Peckinpah, Dennis Cohen, Jim Steranko, and John Borman for the inspiration.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, so that's who he personally thanked in Volume 1.
So, like, I'm assuming John Borman, that's got to be point blank. I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, that's where my mind immediately. I mean, there's The General too. Wasn't it The General with Brendan Gleeson? I believe that was a John Boorman film as well. The Irish gangster film.
Oh yeah. Well, that's why a lot of people talk about love the influences of the book for Violent Love, and I feel like Victor is really the one who brought a lot of that kind of classic cinema, and because it's the visual side of it. And again, I can easily write and be like, make it look like this, but I think he just really has so much of that in his mind and in his style, and really appreciated the idea that he could get to kind of go whole hog on it, like really be like, oh, okay, now I can do an establishing shot in the style of X, Y, or Z, and that makes him a fantastic collaborator as well, because he can kind of bring that authenticity to it versus me just having to pull names out of a hat and be like, oh, it's like this and this. But really for me, I mean, the genesis of it was wanting to do a noir romance where it, like, the romance is there. It's not just like a buzz or marketing word, but this is a love story wherein very, for me, just being a craft nerd, that the real antagonist is the lover. It's really the story of Rock and Daisy. And I was very adamant to just like not have issue 1 and have them like making out and rolling around in bags. Like, no, it's the story of how they actually fall in love. And we know it does not end well, despite subverting that a little bit. But there's a tragedy in there as well. And for me, it was really like about kind of giving that its space and making the love story authentic, but also being able to kind of embellish a lot of the noir and crime stuff that I love, and I know Victor does well. And I don't know, I've been very happy with what we've been able to do with the book, and beyond the surface stuff, what I'm trying to say with it. And I feel like you really get the big point, obviously, at the end of the story, at the end of 9 and 10, as there is stuff I really hope that might color the story different from some other revenge stories. But really, it grew out of that urge to challenge myself, as I'd never written anything like that, and to really do a bit more of a grounded story. I mean, we still have some kind of crazy stuff, particularly with the kind of Mexican gang we made up, and Victor did some awesome kind of character designs for that, but it all still is relatively grounded, and we didn't base it on any specific true story, despite saying inspired by true events. And we want to give it that faux true crime feel of like, oh, well, this could have happened. Sure. This could have been based on something. And
totally.
Obviously that's a riff on Fargo as well. They do the same thing. And hearing the Coens talk about that was very inspirational for me. And I'm glad no one was like, oh, you just ripped that off. I was like, no, but I actually ripped off the right part of it. Not just, not just the text, but the understanding that the book, like, and I feel like Victor leaned into it with his style so great that it has a feeling of like nostalgia about it. It feels like it is someone's story and of a time. And I'm really into, as a writer, playing with readers' expectations like that, and seeing what we can set them up for, and what kind of credence they'll bring to a book if they think it could have been true, and how can we actually play with that. And then the idea of doing a big frame story that actually pays off, because the questions I kept getting as issue 1 and 2, or as we went on a little bit, of like, why is this old man telling this girl the story? What the hell? Like, is this just like a boring frame device? But for me, really, I've been fascinating in studying what good frame stories do, and really the big thing that the takeaway is that they become the main narrative eventually. And we'll see that in Violent Love, that obviously with the cliffhangers at the end of volume 1, but much more in volume 2, we kind of catch back up to real time and see what's going on. And that frame story is very much part of the narrative. And sometimes, like, especially just with the serialized nature of comics, I always try to make sure my issues read well as single issues, but sometimes you just want to scream, like, just give it a second, like it's going somewhere, trust us a little bit.
Dude, I understand, and I sympathize, and I really roll my eyes at a lot of bloggers and even readers who do get impatient and are very frustrated at what they read in chapter 2, and it's like, yeah, there's still 3 or 4 more chapters to go, just and in comic book terms, and it's like, just take it easy, by all means, at the end of the story, if you're not happy, I mean, God, Marvel's in the middle of a big event just like that, and it's just like, God, shut up. And I'm sorry, I am very frustrated with that very loud group that can't wrap their arms around a story that takes a left turn. And it's just like, calm down. I mean, and again, when it's over, if you don't like it, I get it. But and I also, not my cup of tea is fine, but don't shit on the publisher for trying something new. And that's not even what you're doing with, in the confines of your story. You're just telling a story, and there's going to be a dip where, wait a minute, why is this happening? And we are going to be confused for a second. It's okay. It's all right.
I really do stand by, it is our job as creators to surprise and to do stuff that is new, because the most painful feedback that I feel like I have gotten and I see is if this feels generic. Yet at the same time, we struggle constantly with an audience who doesn't want stuff to change too much,
especially
or wants it on their terms.
Especially with mainstream stuff.
Yeah, and it's such a delicate dance. And I always try to be sympathetic to all parties, but there's part of you as a storyteller that just wants to be able to do whatever you want to do. And again, I'm happy to see people stick to their guns and tell the stories they want to tell, because we live in a world where we can very easily hear outcries. And I mean, I think it is very easy to give in sometimes and be like, oh, well, fans don't like this, or, oh, this is getting a bad response. But sometimes you got to see your vision through and hope that people get what you're at least saying, or just not care. I feel like that's the number one thing I've learned, and thankfully getting the opportunity to do a lot of comics over the last 4 years. You can't make everyone happy, and you can't fixate on the people who aren't happy. And as long as you believe in what you're doing,
tell your story.
I don't know. At the end of the day, that's it. And I just think we do have a very interesting ecosystem where it's much easier for readers to contact writers. Yes. And I do think there's a lot of positive to that, but also I think it's very easy to get trapped in that as a writer and worry more about the feedback than what you're trying to do. And for obvious reasons, but I think really the thing we need to be teaching now to students who are studying writing is just almost dealing with that immediate feedback, right? Learning okay, listen, it's always been like this. You're just able to get it if you want it via Twitter or things like that. And you just have to learn to have that discipline of oh, well, maybe don't read Twitter. But
no, I understand, man. Well, I think you are succeeding in listening to your, what the story you want to tell versus the feedback that, again, might revolve around the first or second issue. And don't let it get in the way of you telling your story, dude. You're doing fine. Everything's good, and I'm excited.
Thank you so much.
I'm really excited for you coming back to Five Ghosts, and truly, first volume of Violent Love is fantastic, and I do think it will be a satisfying read, and you will honestly know at the end of it if you want to stay on the journey with Victor and Frank or not. I think you will, because, and again, I do think. Listeners of Word Balloon know I lean towards, good crime, and I think this is a fine example of it. And happy to have you on to talk about it and the other future projects to come for Frank Barbiere. And also really excited for your Warner Brothers crossover with Marvin and John Jones. That'll be great, man.
A lot of fun there. But thank you so much, John. It's my pleasure to talk to you. And again, my pleasure you like the book. It's really been... I can't say the words passion project enough, but sincerely, it is the absolute book we want to be making. So to know it resonates with anyone, but also people I respect, thumbs up from me. So
nice going, man. Absolutely. And help me work over Victor, because, or at the very least, Victor, if you're listening, I'm a huge fan. And if that's the only exchange we have is you hearing this, that's okay too. But I love his stuff. And I think I'm really glad you guys have found something great to work on that will continue. So keep it up.
Thank you so much. Well, and again, anytime. Hopefully sooner than later I'll have more to talk to you about.
That would be great. So.
Frank Barbiere. Don't forget the trade paperback of Violent Love is available Wednesday, tomorrow, as I'm putting out this episode. So it might already be there on your racks if you're getting to this show after Wednesday. But also, obviously, the single issue is available on Comixology and Amazon. But what a great book. I really can't recommend it enough. Wonderful collaboration from Victor Santos and Frank Barbiere. And I was happy to talk to Frank on today's Word Balloon. Hope to get Victor on the show eventually, as I said on the interview. And because I am a huge fan. And let's go over some wonderful product from Victor Santos that's available at InStockTrades.com. You can get all 3 volumes of Polar came from the cold. Tremendous hitman kind of spy thing. It is so darn good, and Victor wrote and drew it. It is amazing. All 3 volumes. There is Volume 1, Came from the Cold. Volume 2, Eye for an Eye. And Volume 3, No Mercy for Sister Maria. All of these are 45% off. They're just $9.89 each. Can't recommend it enough. I am, as I said, such a huge Victor Santos fan. Some more Victor product from In Stock Trades. There's things like his 2 volumes of Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters from IDW, one written by Eric Powell and Tracy Marsh. That's Volume 2 of the ongoing book. Let's see, 30% off, $12.59. Same price for Volume 3, written by Jason Ciaramella, or Maya. I'm not sure if he's Hispanic or not. No disrespect there, Jason. But let's see, you can get Furious, Volume 1, Fallen Star. That's Victor and Brian Glass. I believe we talked about that volume as well from Dark Horse. 45% off, $9.89. He did 2 volumes of James Patterson's Witch and Wizard hardcovers. Both of those are 30% off, $12.59. He did a lot of work with Brian on Mice Templar. I believe we discussed all of that as well. Victor's amazing, and I'm telling you, you really need to get his books. And a lot of them are at great prices at InStockTrades.com. Check it out for yourself. $50 orders or more, you receive free shipping. It's a great place to find wonderful deals, your favorite authors, your favorite artists, all at great prices at InStockTrades.com. Thanks again for listening to today's Word Balloon, and I've got another episode right on the way. So many people have books coming out this week. The next episode is Paul Cornell, and man, it's great to talk to Paul again. He is bringing back Saucer Country, although now it is Saucer State. That is the new continuation of his Vertigo series with Ryan Kelly. They did 14 issues at Vertigo and are continuing the book now at IDW, the first issue of the new volume. It's a new movie, and I can honestly say you can read that first issue and you won't be lost. You'll know exactly what's going on. And I would go back and definitely check out those 14 issues. But I do think you can enjoy the story starting off with Volume 2. And you'll really be on the same page as everybody else. No pun intended. But we'll be talking to Paul about that and a lot of other things on the next episode of Word Balloon. Until then, Word Balloon is a copyright feature of Shaky Productions, copyright 2017.